welcome back to the Blossoming Together podcast. Today we have Emily B here with us. She's a lead at the Novi location. We'll be talking about assessments and goal writing. So before we get into it, Emily B, you're both of our leads.
Yes.
We want to know. We want to know what you hate about us and what you love about us.
I don't hate anything about you. First off,
No.
you're both wonderful. I'm gonna say what I like about you guys
Okay,
first.
go
I
for
guess.
it.
Well, you both were on maternity leave, which I know everybody knows. You guys just had babies, and I was so ready for you guys to come back from maternity leave because you just bring such good energy to our meetings and into the big office, and I really miss the energy.
Stop!
you
I could
guys
cry.
brought. Oh, it's true. I told you that all the time.
Yeah.
But neither of you ever remember to punch in or out. And I'm constantly, every single day, I'm getting, can you fix my time punches?
I put a reminder on my laptop and it's still not working.
It's not working.
It's not
You've both
working.
done that, and
It's
it's
a
not.
big shift from full-time to part-time
Yeah.
to like remember. I suck at it. I don't think I'll gain this skill.
We'll get better. We'll get better for you.
I'll believe that when I see that.
All right, so before we get into it, everyone remember to keep an eye out for the code words throughout the episode, and we're going to go right into the objectives. So objective 1, participants will learn how to conduct skill-based assessments in natural environments.
And objective 2, participants will explore strategies for individualizing goals beyond the standard criteria provided in assessment tools.
Cool. So before we get into it again, I want to go over what an assessment is.
Yes.
So an assessment is a systematic procedure used for us to gather information about the skills that a learner may have, preferences, not preferences, any behaviors they might be having, stuff of that sort.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you hit all the marks of like what assessments are and why they're significant.
All right, Emily? Like,
I
am
think
missing anything?
the barriers.
Oh, yeah,
So it's
you're
not
right.
only what do they know, like where are their deficits, but what's getting in the way of them learning. I think that's a huge thing that people don't think about.
Yeah. And I feel like even in school and like when we were learning about assessments, like people hardly hit on the barriers, right?
No, it's not
like-
emphasized.
It's not emphasized.
It's sometimes it's like, what can't they do? But it's like, okay, but why aren't they doing
Right.
it?
Even when we'll kind of get further into like VB-MAPP in a little bit, but even when Emily and I joined Blossom together at the same time in the reports, we never really addressed barriers, like the barriers assessment within it. And then we like started to really,
Dive in.
hone in on them. Yeah.
Yeah,
And like,
okay. Nice.
that's okay.
But for today's episode, we're going to be focusing on the VB-MAPP assessment. It's one of the big ones we use for early intervention learners.
Yeah.
Kirsten, do you have anything to add about what it is?
Yes. So the VB-MAPP, it's a criterion-based assessment. It was developed by Mark Sundberg in, 2008? Yeah, in 2008.
Then updated last 2014.
14. Yeah, in 2014. So it's relatively new. But with that, it's based on Skinner's verbal behavior book from I think it was the 80s. So it really addresses communication skills, social skills, and it has like a barriers assessment and section within it. And then like play-based skills as well.
Nice. All right. So we kind of also want to talk about, how, like, as we start talking about this, how can we run these assessments in a naturalistic way? Because that's very hard. I feel like you guys talk about it a lot. When you guys came to Blossom, you guys were like, okay, well, we don't have an assessment room. Where are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? You guys want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
I mean, I learned in a clinic that I thought was pretty naturalistic, but in hindsight, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was still very DTT. We did table time. Assessments were really straightforward. Let's sit at the table, do some flashcards, and then we'll go play.
Yeah.
And we thought that was natural, and it really wasn't. So coming to Blossom, I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
where is my big box of
Things.
300 note cards or like
I need those
picture
flippers.
cards? I need
Yeah.
my picture cards. When am I going to ask them to tact?
Right.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to just be like, okay, here's a room full of stuff, go assess. It was very challenging.
Yeah, I came from a center that was very much like we knew it was DTT and we knew it wasn't child-led or like play-based. You know, they had reinforcing time, but it was after 20 trials at the table.
Yeah.
So each of our assessments, like when I learned to do assessments, I learned to do them like in my like supervisor's office at a table. And like we would literally sit there for the entire hour and like drill this child. I learned to like how I learned to run them. And
Think about a new learner coming, and that's all. Like, that's their first impression of you.
And it's also like a toddler, a 2-year-old.
Yes. Like I had
What's
a
a
lot of
2-year-old
young
going to do at a
learners.
table?
Yeah.
And it was well-intentioned. Like I know the BCBAs that I worked with, they thought that they were doing what was right. And like as
Well-intentioned,
I thought they were doing what was right. But they would sit at the table, and I also learned like not to use reinforcement during assessments. I was taught you
no
can't
praise,
reinforce, no praise.
yeah.
So it was really hard. So then I came to Blossom, and I had my first assessment, and my supervisor, like it was my training, so I did it alongside her, and I remember being like, what am I supposed like I have to follow this child around and keep track of everything. Like I was good at like the data, but finding the opportunities to target like a trial was really tricky for me.
And what's hard is these assessments are written, I feel like, with DTT in mind, that they're going to be conducted at the table.
Yes.
There's a lot of these small steps that they just expect us to be doing at a table. So thinking outside of the box can be very hard. So I get that.
Yeah, it can be. And the thing is, like, if we are assessing the learner in that way, we're not actually gaining what they know. Like, we don't get to see all of their skills, because if I were sitting at a table back to back for an hour, I'm going to get burnt out and not show all my skills. So we're not giving them the full benefit and the opportunity.
One thing I think that's important for people to realize is you can do all of this in play.
Yeah.
All of the
100%.
domains are easy to present within play, in their like with their preferences in mind.
Yeah.
So that's very important.
Well, and I think a big thing, like you hinted to the preferences. If I'm getting a new kid that I've never met before coming in, they don't know me, they're going to go do what they want to do. And I'm going to learn, I'm going to get a lot of valuable insight just in that hour that I have them as to what they actually like to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if I'm just sitting at a table or in an assessment room, I'm not going to have any idea on day one what this kid likes to do.
So it'll guide you on like how you can create the goals. We'll get further into that, but like how it's going to be individual for that learner and socially significant.
some other things. I know you said, we were always taught not to use reinforcers.
Yes.
But like while we're playing, there are going to be natural reinforcers that, come about, or we can provide them with natural reinforcers.
Like through that intrinsic motivation of play. Like it should be motivating for them to do this skill for themselves without the extrinsic motivation of us reinforcing.
And and if it's not coming during the assessment, that's something you might need to work on as well.
Exactly.
Do you have any other tips?
Some of the other tips that I really wanted to hone in on is collaborate on the assessment. So yes, I feel like we do the parent interview portion. But with that, I think the parent should be involved in showing, following us around through the assessment and showing us oh, you know what? He actually does know how to use this toy, but he uses it this way.
Yeah.
So that we can guide the skills in that sense.
Yeah. Cause these parents at this point, they know their kid front to back.
Yes.
They're really going to be, especially for an initial assessment to me,
oh my gosh,
I'm going to get my information from the parent. Because again, this kid doesn't know me. They're not going to show me everything that they know, but the parent knows everything. So
That's true. And then if you can, getting other people's siblings insight, they play with the learner a lot. Have they seen him play with anything? Stuff of that sort.
Yeah.
So kind of went over what we can be doing. We want to go over some of the domains, not each domain, but some of the domains and how we can naturally create opportunities to test those skills.
Yeah. Because we know that manding and the social skills and play skills, those are they can and are commonly done in the natural setting. But I think where students and new BCBAs really don't realize is you can do every other domain in a natural setting.
Yes, I have everybody. Those are the ones that I feel like people are naturally doing. Naturally, right, in observation.
But there's so many other areas.
30-minute intervals. But 30 minutes doesn't give you enough.
A lot of time.
Yeah.
And again, especially for an initial assessment, you're not going to get half of the stuff that you want in an initial assessment.
And that's normal no matter how you do it. But it's crazy, right? All right.
So I kind of wanted to ask you, I feel like because you grew up as a student, we talk a lot about how you grew up in this NET setting.
Yeah.
So as far as tacting, how would you implement that in a natural way during an initial assessment?
I feel like the best room to go to for tacting is the play kitchen.
Yeah.
Because you have a million things you could be tacting in the play kitchen. You have plates, you have utensils, you have different types of food. Within food, think about how many different colored foods there are.
So many.
You have red, green, yellow. You can ask them the color of the food. Same thing with the utensils. Ask them whatever. If you have cookbooks around, you can look in there for additional items.
Yeah.
Just go wherever. Remember, there's a learning opportunity within each item that comes across you. Even
every environment.
This mug. How many things could I test with this mug?
Literally,
tact. What color is it?
Pink
and white. Oh, what is it right here?
It's a flower.
Yep. Then the letters.
Yeah.
There's a little logo right here I could ask.
There's so many.
There's so many things within each item you come across, just take some time and practice.
Yeah.
You know, like you're in a room. How many things can you tact in that room
Yeah.
before you start an assessment?
Or here's just an activity.
Yep.
How many different things can you get out of this one activity?
Like if you're doing Play-Doh, I feel like I love Play-Doh too because you have like
Yeah.
the shape little cutters.
I love shape sorters.
Yeah.
Shape sorters. You can get so much out of a shape sorter. Tacting the shape, tacting the color. You get some receptive ID. You can get some visual performance matching stuff in there. You can stack them up with some fine motor.
A shape sorter is not just for, what is it in the VB-MAPP stacks?
It's like
It's putting in.
Yeah, putting
puts in
in.
5 pieces
It's
of a
not
shape
just
sorter.
for that. You can use
do
it for literally
with
so
it.
many things.
Yeah. I think it's like missed a lot of times. Do you have any other like tacting opportunities that you think of?
Oh, I always love books. I think a lot of our
my gosh,
kids
I
tend
love
to
this.
gravitate towards books. And especially if you can get a book that's not super busy, like an Eric Carle book or
Yeah.
like a, something where like
Hungry
the alpha.
Caterpillar.
Yes, the Very Hungry Caterpillar. There's not 100 things going on the page.
Yes.
Because if there's too much on the page, it's going to be
the
really
array's too
distracting.
big, right? Yeah, it's
the array,
distracting.
it'd still be too distracting. They
Yeah.
might not know what you're looking at. But just going through books, I'm like, oh, what do you see on this page? I
You know
love
what book
using
I
books.
love is the first 100 words.
That's
Oh
a
yeah,
great
because they're
one.
like little,
It's like little tiny page.
and
Like
you
there's
can
4
block
on
whatever
each.
you need to.
Yes.
Focusing on one picture.
If you do want to block and array, something that I do like when using a book for tacting is I use sticky notes, especially
that's
during
a
an
good
assessment.
idea.
So I just sticky over the things that I'm like, oh, this might be a little distracting, or there's too many like cluttered pages.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Or books you can just fold back so you can only show one page, although it might break them, but whatever.
You know, what are you going to do?
And I feel like the same goes for listener responding. The same things we just acted, we can present in arrays as well.
Yep, you can
right?
present in an array. I think that something that we really focus on with listener responding, especially like motor actions and skills, is we always go to like clap hands, arms up, and things like that, but it's not so natural. Whereas like I really like to target come here, stop, wait.
Those functional
Yes.
ones.
Yes, I want to make it
Sit
functional.
down.
Yeah.
Yes, things that they're going to hear in a classroom
on
because
the
our
light,
ultimate
turn off the
goal.
light.
Yeah, our goal is for them to get into a classroom setting. So, do they have any of these skills that we're looking for before graduation?
That's smart. I like that. Okay, so we kind of went over the listener responding ones. Let's
Yeah.
go into the visual system.
Perceptual.
Yep.
I think for this one, so within the VB-MAPP, I think it's like later on into the assessment, probably like level 2 or 3, it's using puzzles as
Yeah.
the array for matching. But I like to do that pretty early on because like you said, it's an interest.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times you can find a puzzle that has identical matches. And then you can I like to do the shadow ones where it's like they don't have the matching picture. So that's
Oh,
like
so
your
you
not
gotta go, like-
identical match
Yeah.
rather than like looking for the direct picture match. So I really like to use puzzles for that one. What do you use?
I feel like puzzles are a big one. Sometimes, like we have the smart boards, we have like those matching.
Those are fun, yeah.
games. I feel like I like to use those. What
Yeah.
about you?
I have 2. You talked about the play kitchen earlier.
Yeah.
The fruit or the food you can cut in half,
Oh, yeah.
matching the halves together.
Oh, that's
I'm
a
actually
good
doing
one.
that with
And
some
it's
of my
funny,
kids
right?
now.
Like when you're like, watch this, and you cut up all the fruit, you kind of gain their
like,
interest
oh
there.
no, they all fell apart. Let's put them back together.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
We love
And
our
also, like anything that's colorful, you
Yeah.
can work on sorting colors that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of our kids kind of naturally do that anyway. It's a really easy way to see like, oh, they can sort by color.
Yeah.
Right. Or if you've gathered some information before they come in and you know they love cars, you can gather all the cars with different colors in the building.
Yeah.
I'm sure whatever center you're at, you have like a ton of cars.
Ton of cars, ton of animals. I feel like animals are always
even
a big
letters.
one.
If you have clients that have strong interest with letters and numbers, if you have the magnets in different colors, you guys can match those.
If you have the mats, I feel like everyone has circle time mats using that. Like, ooh, where could this match?
Yep.
You know?
And then you get to run around and like match it.
Yeah. It's really fun.
All right. What about imitation?
I have big feelings about imitation.
Tell
Go
me.
for it.
So specifically fine motor, like gross motor imitation, like you have to work on kind of those skills just to see if they're able to attend to you and imitate. But for fine motor, my biggest pet peeve, I think, in life is targeting like, show me 3, show me 2, how
At least
functional.
two is peace sign.
Peace sign. But like how often are kids going like, unless they're 3 years old, but that's only for a short period of
Yeah.
time, like they're not going to be like using this. Like we want to develop those skills in other ways. So I will a lot of times use like what they're doing for like, if they're coloring, I want to like work on the fine motor imitating opening a marker, fine motor, like twisting a lock for the bathroom stall. Like like playing with Play-Doh. Can they squeeze the Play-Doh?
Yeah.
Like you can see fine motor skills in such different ways than just showing you their hand with like
Yeah.
small signs.
Because really, when it comes down to it, they can do this.
Yeah.
cool. What does that add to their life?
It's not
other than I can tell
functional.
you I'm 2.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or
Well,
like
I'm
peace
too.
out.
And I feel like the hard thing is when you're running an assessment, you're like blank, right?
Yeah.
You're blank. You're like, what else can I do with my finger?
How many other things?
Like, yeah, how many other, and or you Google like lists
Yes.
to use or data sheets to use.
Yeah.
And they come with these like random lists of things you can do, like
It's like puts 2 fingers together.
Yeah. Or like
but
this
there's
one.
like a
The
butterfly
pincer
one,
grasp.
but it's so hard. I can't
Like
even
that?
do it. Yeah,
I would've done it
It was
like-
like this. Maybe I can't.
Wait,
I don't know.
You drew like this. See, you don't even know.
I don't even know, but it says like put 2 together. I'm like that.
Make a butterfly?
Like, that doesn't work.
That's really funny.
And then by then I've lost their interest too.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
no one's watching me do like
They're over
No.
it.
no.
But I also think too, like most of our early learners, we're not going to jump right into fine motor anyway.
No,
So that's kind
we
of like
should
down
be.
the line
Yes,
things. But some
but-
of our learners, when they come in,
I mean,
We
but
could do
yeah,
that.
even for
Yeah.
reassessments and like getting into that point, for some of those early learners in the gross motor, what do you do to like individualize it?
most every kid that I've worked with really loves songs. And so
Yeah.
a lot of kid songs and nursery rhymes, you can do like little, like the wheels on the bus or like open and shut or
Yes.
like arms up for like up and down, stuff like that. So I
Just
like
watch
to.
Miss Rachel for a little
Oh,
bit.
Miss
And be like, what does
Rachel.
she
She's
do?
my queen. Does
Just
Kinza watch
her.
Miss Rachel
Yeah.
yet? Same with
Like,
Athena.
what does Miss Rachel do? It's very natural. Like if you aren't someplace where you're used to people being very natural, playing all the time, just watch a kid's video.
Yeah.
Or like back in our day, like Out of the Box. I feel like
Out
I
of the
should run
Box.
like Out of the Box.
Oh, I miss Out of the Box.
That was good.
Classics.
But yeah, songs just make everything more fun.
Yeah.
Like if I like the difference between do this versus like if you're happy and you know clap your hands.
Right.
And, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
way.
just so much more natural and more fun, and they're gonna naturally be reinforced by doing the song with you anyway. So you don't have to think about like, okay, they just clap their hands. How do I reinforce them?
And you're
By
getting
singing the song.
And you're getting multiple domains because now you're also testing that joint attention and
Yeah.
that engagement piece. So you can do multiple things at one time.
Or you could even test the inner verbal right there. Stop. Will I fill it in?
Yeah, exactly.
Aw.
So like incorporating them all together. For a coex, Yousra, what are you
I
feeling?
feel like the echoics one is so hard because
It's
I don't even
tricky.
like. I know, like later down, like a lot of speech paths are like, well, we don't need to.
We
be
shouldn't do
we shouldn't do
echoics.
the echoics, or we shouldn't be running that specific target. But you know, for
Yes.
us, it is like
It's important.
it's important.
It's necessary.
You know, and it's like research based too.
Yes.
So I feel like I just like to run it when they're having the most fun on a swing while they're jumping, just taking a short break, presenting it, and then moving on.
I
Yeah.
pair it with like their spontaneous vocalizations. So if earlier in the assessment I heard them say da da da,
Yeah.
later on I'll see if they can vocally imitate me. Because the goal of a coex isn't to like see if they have the verbal language. It's
Yeah.
can they like
Repeat.
imitate
Yeah.
you with like 100% like consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can they pay attention to what they're hearing? Could they potentially pay attention to what they're seeing your mouth do? And can they copy it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not just for like that verbal skill. It's multiple different like domains in there.
I love to do a coex, like especially with our really early learners.
Yeah.
Sound effects while you're playing.
I love
yeah.
that.
Like moo, ah, wee, ooh,
Yeah.
like all
That's
kinds of
fun.
stuff
and
like
making
that.
it dramatic because then they're
Yes.
more inclined. Yeah, I like that a
Ooh,
lot.
what's that lady doing?
Oh, everybody knows I'm crazy. She's a crazy lady.
The kids love it.
Aww. All right, what about, I feel like for like the play and social, we already talked, like you get into it, group, getting into a real circle time, I feel like is the
Yes.
best. Like we're lucky, we have circle time going on like
Like it's every 30
Constantly.
every
Yeah.
30 minutes, but if you don't, get a group of kids there ready to do something.
Yeah, even plan ahead of time.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I know the learner I'm assessing, this initial is 2.5 years old. Do I have like 2 or 3 other like around those age kiddos that I can pair them with?
Or even if you just don't suspect that they'll be able to sit in a more structured group setting, just putting them into a classroom with a bunch of other kids just
see
to
what
see
they
what they
do.
do.
Yeah, what are
Yeah.
we going to do? I like that.
Or even if you have a fun game like a parachute going on
Yeah.
and seeing if they join. I feel like a lot of this, we're talking about it, but it gets like hard when you got to collect the data, right? You're like, oh,
In the
I have to
moment.
run it. It's like, do you guys have any tips for that? Like, I know it was probably overwhelming when you guys started.
Oh my
right? Like,
gosh.
so what did you feel like what did you do to make it easier for you?
I don't know if you have any plans first.
Especially for initial assessments, I kind of tend to go in, and I've told my students this and they look at me like I'm crazy. I like to go into an initial assessment purposely without a plan
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I could sit here and make a plan for an hour and I'll get none of it.
Nope.
So I'll have like, what did they request for? How did they tell me? Did they make eye contact with me?
Yeah.
Can they track things? But then I'll just have a bunch of blank paper.
That's what I do.
See, I was
too.
going to say because we're a little bit more experienced BCBAs, we are able to literally just be like,
memorized.
we have it all memorized. But for those new BCBAs, you can even, I forget what the website is, but there's a data sheet that's pre-made
It's
for.
like the PTAN one, right?
Yes.
think-
I don't know about
So
that.
it's pre-made for the.
But Blossom
VB-MAPP
has one
book.
too, and I
We
wonder
do
if we can
have
share
one.
it.
Yeah,
that
I
would
think
be
we can.
good.
We'll put it in the
We'll
like
put in the
links below.
resources. Yeah, Blossom has one.
But I think that's really beneficial. And like knowing that if you have an early learner, you might not get to like level 2 and
Everything.
3. So just
Giving yourself
printing.
grace, I feel
Yes,
like
it's
that's-
okay that you're
yeah.
not going to get through
Yeah.
it.
Oh my gosh. And when you're tracking everything, like you're going to remember, like you're going to go back and write the assessment and like know off the top of your head kind of like
Yeah.
what skills this learner had. You're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that they were doing tacting for this. I think the next best goal is this.
But I feel like the first time I ran an assessment of myself, I was like, I got nothing done.
I genuinely like, I could have cried. I was
I
like,
was
oh
they're
my
gonna yell
gosh.
at me.
Yeah.
But Jasmine's gonna look at it and be like, "What did she do?"
Oh,
Literally
yeah.
no one.
I told, oh gosh, Katie went in with such a plan. And I looked at her and I said, girl, you're not going to get any of that done. She goes, yeah, I will. I said, okay.
We'll see.
And she didn't. And I was like, then it's okay. Like, it's
That's
totally
okay.
fine.
Yeah, I remember.
And I think a lot, like you come in and you just have such an
But
expectation
that's like the
of what
anxiety around
yeah.
it, right? You know, you're like, there's so many domains and there's so many different targets we're supposed to probe.
Yeah.
But like, remember that it's okay.
Yeah.
And also all the barriers.
Yeah.
There's going to be
Yes.
so many
You're
that
gonna
we
see
have to
barriers
figure.
too,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's going to be.
And that
really
should be in your
impact it.
assessment report because that is what's
important.
important to target. Like we're so right about it. If you didn't hit anything because this child was tantruming or they were having big feelings and having a really hard time, that's okay. And that's where your goals should
Or
prioritize.
even they just didn't even acknowledge that you were in the room.
Yes.
That
Like a
might be something
10.
you need to work on.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I always goal from the barriers
Yeah.
assessment right off the bat.
I want to pause really quick before I forget. Our first code word is Myrna. M-I-R-N-A. Myrna. Okay. Get back into it.
All right. I feel like we were kind of coming towards the end of like what to look for in assessments and what to do. So I want to go into goal writing. I know
My favorite
you and
thing.
Emily like love
Seriously.
talking about this. That's why we had you on, right?
Yeah, goals are our favorite.
So do you want to start a little bit?
Yes. So something that Emily and I talk about often is like our goals, like with the assessment tools, they are just tools.
Yep.
They are guidelines to guide where we're going, but your goals do not need to directly reflect from that book. And I know you have a lot of opinions on this.
I do have a lot of opinions on that. I had the benefit of learning from pretty experienced BCBAs who'd been speech paths for a really long time. And so I was always taught, like all through my practicum, like when I was learning how to write goals, that as long as you can somehow prove that this is behavior analytic, it does not need to come from the assessment. It does not need to be pulled verbatim. And honestly, it shouldn't be pulled for verbatim from the VB-MAPP because that's, again, it's a guideline. It's not the only way to do it.
No.
And so I tend to try to like really look at my client and be like, okay, we have to work on tacting 5 reinforcing items, but what does that really, really, really look like for my client?
Yeah.
Like
thinking critically about it, really.
thinking critically, thinking like, how am I going to get them to do this if they won't even look at me and turn around? And honestly, am I even ready to write this goal? Like,
Right.
yeah, it's technically the
first
first
goal.
tacting goal,
Yeah.
but are they even ready for this? Do they have the vocal skills? Do they have the attending? Like, how am I going to get them to that point?
Yeah.
I've seen so many people write tact goals for kids that aren't even like
Vocalizing.
vocalizing. I'm like,
Because they
well,
think they have to.
Yeah, you don't have to have a tacting goal. If
No.
they're not verbal at this state,
You think
or
you
point,
need to put? I
don't
feel
write
like
a tacting goal.
When I wasn't at Blossom, like at my old center, I felt like I had to pull one goal from each one.
Each section.
Each section.
Ah.
I need a manding goal. I need a tactic goal.
Yeah.
And I need like
You're like LRFFC and this learner's like not
literally,
even.
If you go through, I was looking through my email and I found them. I literally went in order. And no one ever gave me that feedback. Like, oh, like that's not what you need to do.
Well, and I think that's what it is a lot of BCBAs and like young BCBAs and practicum students, you don't know that you can think outside of the box.
Yeah.
This
like-
is your creative area.
Yes.
You are the expert in this and like creating those goals. Hone in on that and like, show your expertise and your knowledge. As long as it relates, only if you're submitting to insurance.
Medical necessity.
If it relates to the core deficits of autism and as a medical necessity. But also if you're doing it for private clients, it doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Like you can write a goal on just about anything.
And if you're not familiar with like I forget, medical necessity.
Yeah.
You can look up the insurance's like definitions
Policies,
of those.
yep.
If you really need something to go off of, you can look those up.
Yeah. So just making sure that they relate to those, but it can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to. So the assessment tools, they're really important because we need to see where these children are falling.
It's the benchmark. It's the
Standardizing.
goalpost. It's where we have to get.
We need to know where
but
they're
it's not
falling.
how we have to get there.
In relation to their peers. Yeah.
Aww,
Yeah.
I love that guy.
So with goals, let's kind of talk about it a little bit though. What if you had a learner who's brand new, an early learner, and you have all of these level 1 VB-MAPP goals, but they're not even near any of those goals. Where are you going to go first?
So I actually had about 6 months ago a little 2-year-old come in, and she was about that, where it's like I have to start at the bottom of the VB-MAPP, but she wouldn't pay attention to me. Everything went into her mouth. She didn't make eye contact. It was like she had none of those skills. Like she had vocal skills, but she didn't know she didn't use them in any context. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, we're going to have to work on receptive ID, but she's not going to pay attention. So I had to teach her how to take a gestural prompt and how to follow that. So can you pick up something that I'm pointing to? Can you look at something that I'm pointing to?
So you're creating the goal with the prompt.
Exactly. Yeah. Because you have to teach them how to take a prompt in order to teach them with prompts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're not going to just naturally know, pick up this one that I'm pointing
what does that
to.
even mean?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to work on that, and you have to start at the bottom.
I think so too.
What are some other ways you guys have individualized goals for clients? I know you talk a lot about the mastery criteria.
Yes, mastery criteria. So I feel like every clinician and every student learns the 80% across 3 days and 2 technicians, which it has its needs and moments. Yeah, it's it's good. Yeah. However, there's so many other ways that you can measure data. You can modify that percentage because if I think about it, I'm not going to know something 70% of the time. Sometimes I forget things. We're human. It doesn't have to be such.
Do you agree
high
a person
criteria
that comes into the room 90% of the time?
Oh my gosh, no.
Depends on the person. Familiar people, maybe.
Maybe if you're lucky. If I'm not busy on my computer or something and distracted. The other thing is you can do instances across days. So a lot of times, especially for requesting, I see a lot of BCBAs, will manned for 5 different items with 80%. And I'm like, why? How are we measuring it that way? Yeah. So I do 5 times a day for 3 consecutive days. You can change it. It doesn't have to be directly from that.
Yeah. Another way that I really like to modify my goals, especially for a lot of our really early learners, is working my prompts into the goal. You don't have to jump straight to independence.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to. So it's will stay in the classroom for group circle time given no more than 3 prompts from the adult or something like that, working the prompts.
That's appropriate.
It is.
You're not going to sit.
Yeah.
No.
30 minutes.
And kids are going to be prompted in the real world. Yeah. You're going to get that verbal prompt. Oh, come back,
Or let's look up.
Yeah.
That sort.
Yeah. Or even I'm working on I have some task analyses for one of my client right now to participate in his daily routines. But every single one is given a gestural prompt from me. Yeah. Because he's not going to naturally know how to do that. So but will he go put his hands under the water if I point to the water? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And eventually I would love for him to just see running water and know I have to go wash my hands, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And so it's almost giving them the grace of expecting that they're going to need a little bit of help.
Right.
And the other
giving
thing
it to
is
them.
when we're modifying these goals to be a little bit simpler, the learner's going to gain so much more and feel that intrinsic motivation. Whereas if they're getting errors 10 days in a row, 0%, they're not going to have the motivation to continue learning.
Yeah. And it's also motivating for our techs too. Oh, if our techs are seeing it, just error. They're like, well, what am I doing wrong?
What's
I'm
the
like,
point
you're
of
not
me
doing
being
anything
here?
wrong.
Yeah.
I, as a BCBA, just jumped ahead too fast.
Yeah, we jumped. The other thing is don't be glued to the number in the VB-MAPP.
There's numbers are crazy.
50 tags,
100 noun-verb tags. It's
yes.
No.
So your goal, yes, that's the guideline and what we use to kind of see where this child is. But let's if they're starting, so first you want to minimize that because expecting them to know 50 different things within one assessment period might not be realistic. So you can make that you can start, if it's a really early learner, start with 5 or 10. And as they gain more skills, you can jump that number. And then the other thing is once they do start gaining those skills and say a learner has mastered 20 targets and they're starting to generalize, they're able to identify that this is a horse and this is a horse and they're all different, you can presume competence and you don't have to test all 50 trials.
100%. A lot of times, especially with those noun verb ones, I'll put in like 10 really direct targets to teach the concept.
Yeah.
And once they master those, I'll move into just a generalization. Can they do it with novel things? And if they can consistently, I presume competence. And I'm just like, okay, cool.
Yes.
We did it.
Next day.
And then you can jump to the next goal. And then if they're like really struggling with that next goal, it's like, okay, maybe we do need to go back and add a few more.
Get a
of the
little bit more
previous.
practice.
And that's totally fine. You can always go back.
Also, critically thinking about if that goal will benefit your learner in any way.
Yes.
The social significance piece.
I feel like we write a lot of goals, just like we're looking at the assessment. We're like,
Or we need it. We're like, oh my God, we need 20 goals for this 40-hour
so
learner
you're like,
or whatever.
make something up, but not that you make something. You pull something from the VB-MAPP,
Yes.
but it may not benefit that learner right now. Especially if they're like a young one that hasn't learned even how to play yet.
Yeah.
And we're jumping to like listener responding.
Yeah.
No, let's take some time and work on those play skills or those manding skills.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have anything else on that one?
I think it's I was just having a conversation with a student about this the other day, and it's really just looking at what's going to benefit their day the most.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to increase just a little bit of something in their life? And so if right
HRE.
now, if it's just, how are you going to get them to HRE?
Yeah.
And I think if right now we're just in a state where we don't want to do anything but play, just play.
Yeah.
Work on expanding your play, working on, you like to line these blocks up. What else can we do with these blocks?
Yeah.
Like just learning
Stacking
different like variations and flexibility in their play. I feel like that's a good one too.
Yeah.
But then also going to the barriers, I think is really important too. So it's not what skills can we teach, it's what barriers can we reduce.
You want to give an example? I feel like you have so many good ones.
I just think it depends on the kid, but a lot of my can I see? I like to just I'm jogging in my memory on what the barriers even are at this point. But I think
I feel like I can make a client up for you.
make a client up for me.
client.
I think instructional control is one that like you can because you can't really teach anything if you don't have instructional control. So that's a big one. Weak motivators. That's you literally decrease that barrier by teaching them all the fun things that we can do around us.
Yes, expanding their knowledge with or how to use different items.
Yeah, I think like impaired social skills is a big one. Hyperactive behavior. Can we work on sitting down and playing in one space?
In one room.
Yeah, staying in one room. Like there's so many things that you can do where it's like we're not necessarily building up our skills, but we're reducing our barriers so that we can then build up our skills.
Something I saw when I was at a DTT clinic, people made like table time or like a goal too. I feel like they were like, let's think critically.
so boring.
But then like what their goal was like, we'll tolerate sitting at the table for 5 minutes, and the clients, or not even 5. I had people do like 30.
Yeah.
And the clients too.
Yeah,
Like they're nowhere
that would be
near
appropriate
school
for a
age.
kid who's getting ready for first
School,
grade.
yeah, but not
But
like
that's what, 5 years or no, 4 years away at that point. The other thing that I really do is like thinking about, so these like the goals within the VB-MAPP, there's like 5 areas for each of the sections, like before you get to like level 1, 2, and 3. But like going between the lines, like they might not be ready to jump from level 1 to level 2 or like that second step. So they like within the VB-MAPP, I don't think people realize you can use those like supporting goals. I use those a lot, and I don't see that a lot of people do because they're like, well, I can't highlight it on my graph, so why would I target it? It's like because in order to get to that second like area, you need to hit the between the lines.
And people forget you can look at that,
Yes.
right? That it's there. Like, oh, we're not mastering this. They're still there. But like, go back and see what they're missing.
Yeah, because those supporting goals show you what areas are needed before we get to those like bigger skills. So if you don't have those areas that you need, the supporting areas, you're not going to get there.
I just think it really comes down to like, okay, we've been working on this for 4 months and we're not making any progress. Sitting back and being able to like critically think about what about this isn't working.
What's the deficit?
Yeah.
here?
What's the deficit? What's getting in the way? Is it that they don't understand the question? Is that they don't know how to listen to the question? Is it that they don't know to look at the question?
Yeah.
Are we
Or to-
presenting the question in like a non-child friendly way? Like I've seen a
Exactly.
lot of TACs like working on things like keys, and I'm like, my 2 and 3-year-old children might not know what a key is.
People don't even have keys anymore. They have like touch starts, and their phones have little like.
Well, I talked about like at the beginning, I mentioned that like big box of like 350 like stimulus
so
cards or whatever.
outdated.
But there was like a cassette tape or a cassette player, or
The
one of them was
TV on there.
asparagus. Why do I need to teach a kid what asparagus is?
The TV was a box TV from like the 80s, and I'm like, these kids aren't going to know what that
what's
is. We need a
even
flat
crazier is,
screen.
the imitation where people go like talking on the phone. Nobody knows what this
We
is.
were talking about Gen Z today. No one knows
Yeah,
what this
Gen
is.
Z does this.
Do they? Oh, that's weird.
This is how they
this,
imitate
yeah.
like talking on the phone.
That's weird.
I think it's or like this, I guess.
I
Like
guess.
you're on
FaceTime. That's all they do these
What
days.
they do too.
Our Gen Zers.
Oh, Gen Z.
Code word number 2 is Jenny. Jenny.
All right, going into some examples of goals to individualize. We kind of asked our fellow BCBAs their
Yes.
favorite goals that they've written, and this was kind of a list we came up
Yeah,
with.
we have quite a few. So the first one, some of these actually came from Emily as well. But like the first one that I wrote is when listening to or singing preferred songs, learner will imitate 5 different motor actions with 80% accuracy across 3 days. So this, like, instead of just writing that the learner's going to imitate, we're incorporating the songs and those preferences and things like that.
Like
And
that
expanding which one?
Oh, I was going to go on the second
Yeah,
one.
go ahead.
All right. Between classroom activities, when presented with a visual schedule, learner will independently follow the schedule and transition between activities within 30 seconds without engaging in challenging behaviors with 90% accuracy across 3 sessions. This is one of the ones with a prompt.
Yes.
It has like included the visual schedule that they will be using.
So this is wordy, but like what the goal, it's nothing from the VB-MAPP. We want to know if the child is going to be learning to follow their visual schedule. And then the other thing is like you're allowing them that 30 seconds. Like we can't expect kids to immediately
goal.
immediately drop what they're doing to jump in and like follow your instruction. What if they're like playing with a really highly preferred toy and they're like, oh my gosh, I really need to finish this.
You
like,
don't get up when your husband tells you, come on.
No, I'm like, oh my God, let me finish this text or I'm watching a TikTok. Give me a minute.
Yeah, take
So-
your time. You're like, okay, now
it just
I'm
feels so
getting
much
up.
more natural. And I think that giving them that leeway or giving them a little bit of time, they're going to be so much more willing to do it long term. Whereas if we just like, okay, let's go.
And now you
they're
have,
gonna
and
be
then
like,
you get into these power trips. I feel
Yeah,
like. Sometimes you're like,
exactly.
I said it, and now we need to go, and everything else is, who cares about that? We're going.
Yes.
Like that's what happens sometimes as the TAC.
And I feel like some parents kind of feel that way too. And like, so we focus a lot in parent training of like, we have to like treat our children like, yes, you are their parent and they should follow your rules, but also like they're human. Like give them the
Grace.
same grace that you want to give yourself. The next goal I really wanted to hit on, it's pretty simple, but it's learner will respond to her name by looking in the direction of the instructor when paired with a tactile prompt. So 2 things I want to target about this. The VB-MAPP wants the eye contact. That's what they're looking for. I don't, when I'm talking to somebody, I look at their forehead. I look past them. Sometimes I'm not looking at them. Like
We've
I'm
gotten
thinking.
a lot of feedback and like for the field, like forcing eye contact.
It's not
good.
necessary, especially for our autistic learners. Like that's not fair to them. And then with the tactile prompt, this one incorporates what Emily was saying about like we want to include prompts within the goals, but also like it has them like respond and learn to like those tapping cues. So if I were to like see Yousra in the hallway, I might tap her and be like, Yousra, good to see you. And that indicates to her to look towards me. So we want to give like those goals for some of our kids too.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And it just, again, it's more natural.
Yes.
Oh,
Natural.
I have so many thoughts on eye contact too, but that's a whole other discussion.
I was like, oh, you want to get into it?
That's
We
a whole
don't
other
mind.
discussion.
All right, and the last goal we have is learner will remain engaged in social sensory games with the adult, i.e. peekaboo or reading together, returning to continue the activity by making eye contact, moving body closer, etc. Oh, sorry, that was in parentheses. I should have gone like this.
This is one of my goals. It's really wordy.
For at least 5 exchanges before self-terminating the activity 2 times per day for 3 consecutive days. Tell us about it.
So this is a goal that I will do with almost every single one of my clients that comes in because it can target so many different things and it really doesn't matter what level the learner's at.
Social
Sensory. So I feel like, I don't know why, I feel like I just grew up as a BCBA learning this, with this phrase and I feel like nobody knows what it is.
I had to look it up last night when you told me. Yeah.
So social sensory, there's like,
it's like
kind of when you think about it,
right?
Kind of, but there's 2 types of play. There's object play, where the source of the fun is the things that you're playing with, and there's social play, where the source of the fun is me.
Yeah.
I want to be the fun one. I'm a very selfish BCBA. I have to be the fun one. So kind of what I target with this, it's giving them a little bit of free access to, or just like giving them a little bit of fun for free. And then will they acknowledge that it was fun and somehow tell me that they want to keep having fun with me? So what that might look like is if I go up to, if I throw them in the air and we're running in the gym and I just stop and I throw them in the air, they acknowledge that that's fun, that I was the fun one. Will they then walk up to me and ask me to do it again? It could be even something as simple as like I tickle them on their belly really quickly and then I stop. Will Will they make eye contact? Again, I said I have
look
thoughts
at
on
you.
eye contacts. Will they look at me? Be like, hey, why did you stop? Keep going. Or will they take my hand and put it back on their belly?
Come on.
Or like, I've had a kid who like raises their arm like for the armpit tickle.
And it's any way that they tell you, please keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I love this one because it's first and foremost, it makes pairing super easy. Like if you become the source of the fun, a kid will do anything for you.
And this is great for parents.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of parents struggle with like that bonding with some of their kiddos who struggle with that engagement. When we teach the skill, it makes their home life so much more exciting.
I have a whole list that I send to parents when I write this goal that I'm like, this is what we're doing. Do it at home.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But yeah, it works on that pairing. It works on that joint attention of like focusing on the same thing. It works on initiation, which is a really early manding skill.
Yep.
You know, can they somehow like start and like realize that they want to tell me that more?
Because that eye contact is a mand. It's like them indicating to you their preference and what they want in that moment.
It is. But then also depending on the learner and where they're at, I can work a coax into this. Can I make a sound effect and will they then echo me? So they can get more. Exactly. Like, I just feel like within
that vocal
this,
volley.
you get so many different learning opportunities out of something as simple as tickling them.
Yes, it's such a good goal.
But I write it with everybody. It's my favorite thing to do.
I stole it and I put it in today for one of my early learners.
I feel like people are going to use it going forward now.
It's
I
fun.
hope so.
Take it. I didn't come up with it, but I love it.
No, it's amazing. And well, that's kind of us wrapping up.
Quickly, I want to note, so our third code word is going to be Taylor, Taylor.
Well, Emily B., thank you for
Thank you for
coming
having me. It was really fun.
It was such a good time. Thanks for coming.
And we'll make sure we clock out when we leave.
Thank
We're
you
clocking out
very
right
much.
now.
Please let me know if you need me to change the time.
All right, guys, thank you so much for listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want your CEU credits, go to our website at blossomchildrencenter.com.
Talk to you later.
See you.